The first one this week is Creeping Jenny. It's Lysimachia nummularia aurea. Not the ajuga, but this one. This is a real fine textured little ground cover, real petite, kind of hugs the ground, kind of will creep over the stuff around it, in fact. But this is a real good ground cover, likes the shade. This happens to be at my neighbor's house. Kind of growing behind the shrubbery on a north facing wall, so it gets a lot of shade. Obviously, if the ajuga is happy, then you'll know where you can grow Creeping Jenny. Creeping Jenny is also a very good one for container plants, because as it runs and creeps, it'll kind of hang over the side of the pot and be that spiller for the thriller filler spiller regime that we talked about earlier. The cultivar name Aurea, A-U-R-E-A, is typical of plants that have a golden color. So you'll see that name repeated frequently. And doesn't it make a really nice contrast with this bronze ajuga? Really pretty contrast, the different, the bolder leaves of the ajuga contrasting with the finer leaves of the Creeping Jenny or Lysimachia. Doesn't like really poorly drained soil, but otherwise it tolerates a lot. It'll take some sun. It'll also take foot traffic. I mean, it'll kind of look beat up a little bit, but it will tolerate some foot traffic. But you can get a good idea of the size of the leaves. Nice little evergreen ground cover. It's pretty tough. I've thrown it on my compost pile, and in the spring rescued it and put it back in pots, and it just keeps on going. But that's another good one, Lysimachia nummularia aurea. This next plant is peppermint. It's Mentha bipiperita or piperita. This is it's in the Lamiaceae family, which is a large family. I remember Lamiaceae, or one of the main characteristics of that family is the square stem. So not everything with a square stem is Lamiaceae, or it's also known as the Labiaceae family. But a lot of things are, for instance, not just the mints, but bee balms are closely related. Sage, coleus, plectranthus, like the Cuban oregano we have in the greenhouse, those are all in that Lamiaceae family. They all have square stems. One of the characteristics of mint is that it is extremely easy to grow. All you need is some fairly well-drained soil and a fair amount of sunlight. It'll certainly take full sun, and it will also tolerate some shade. But it's easy to grow. No real stipulations about fertility. Not a lot of bug problems. It can get some aphids in the spring, but nothing that it can't handle. One of the downsides of mint is that it's too easy to grow, and you can see from this picture that the rhizomes can allow it to spread far and wide, and it will quickly get out of control if you let it. So typically people will grow it in a container, or grow it inside of an enclosed bed, like inside a sidewalk that's confined by, or inside a bed that's confined by sidewalks and concrete and things like that. Do not plant this out in the ground unless you just want to have it forever. I have seen gardeners use a technique where they installed it or planted it in a container and then sunk that container in the ground, and then that will contain it to a degree. Now, I suspect that as strong as these rhizomes are, that they could escape the drain holes in that container, and then it's off to the races. However, there are a lot of mints to choose from. And they have all kind of names like spearmint and watermint, and gosh, they just go on. There's a chocolate mint, pineapple mint, apple mint, just tons and tons of different kinds of mint. You can see the variety in this offering from a Amazon dealer in the UK. But that's mint or mentha by Piperita. This plant is Miscanthus sinensis gracilis. This is also called Eulalia grass. It's another ornamental grass. It's in the Poaceae family, like a lot of ornamental grasses. Really popular, widely used ornamental grass. This one is probably 5 or 6 feet tall with these loose open panicles of flowers. They start blooming in August or September and persist. It's now late November, and they'll slowly fade, and the grass blades will kind of curl up and wither, and it probably benefits from a good cleaning, taking it down real low and cutting it off and letting it rejuvenate every year. But one of the characteristics is this silvery mid-vein or mid-rib. You can see the whitish stripe in the middle of that vein or the grass blade, and it's kind of hard to show, but the edges of the leaves are rough. They're sawtoothed, and they'd probably cut you if you dove into it to retrieve a basketball or something. Really pretty as the light comes through them. They're kind of in a mixed planting here. This is one of our elementary schools, Eastlake Elementary, and you'll see in the next video where I've got all one kind of grass around a school sign. This one is a very mixed planting, very different idea. Just combining textures and colors. You see the upright fine texture of the grass, and then the little low-growing loropetalum. That one's called Daruma, and then the gray owl junipers, just to kind of give it some contrast, kind of a cottagey look. There are other kinds of miscanthus, or it's also called maiden grass. There are some that have a more, I guess it's kind of a russet or bronzy kind of color, called morning light. There's some little shorter ones that don't get but about 2.5, 3 feet tall. But this one is very well behaved, and when I say well behaved, I mean it doesn't cause a lot of problems. Some plants are weedy and stoloniferous and are a constant headache from a maintenance point of view, where maiden grass is a good one. I mean, you can kind of see where it kind of backs up that sign up there. I apologize for the road noise. I couldn't stop traffic for this. But it is well behaved, and about the only maintenance you have to do is probably late winter, say February-ish, when all the foliage kind of starts curling down, and these will kind of get beat up looking. If we have a lot of rain or a lot of ice or snow or something, they'll kind of lay down. So just to make them look neat, it's always a good idea to take some hand shears and just shear the dead stuff off, leave a little neat mound, and they'll rejuvenate. Again, like all grasses, they grow from the bottom, so it'll be completely new next year. So this is Miscanthus sinensis gracilis, or maiden grass. This plant is Muhlenbergia capillaris. This is a fall flowering grass. It's in the Poaceae family, like a lot of ornamental grasses are, true grasses. This is known for its real airy pink flowers. You kind of get an idea of what's left of them. These have done really well this year. Just when they're backlit by the sun, they really kind of light up. Let me see if I can get around and get a better angle. This happens to be a planting that I did at one of our schools. This is Hickory Flat Elementary School. You kind of get an idea what they look like when the sun kind of comes through the back of them. They just kind of light up. They're just really, really pretty. These are really at their peak right now. Good warm season grass, pretty well behaved. They don't escape cultivation. They don't become a weedy pest. So good stuff. And I kind of wanted to show how you don't have to get real fancy sometimes with the planting. This is more a design topic than an ID topic. But this new sign went in and it had a lot of black and that bright green. And I thought, you know what, the pink of the muhly grass would be, I think, really pretty and bold. So I just did this whole bed in muhly grass. But it's a warm season grass, so it tends to grow more, of course, in the warm weather, unlike, say, a cool season grass like an ornamental fescue or something like that. I've got some kind of laying over. We did have some rain last night, and we've got some newer plantings kind of some were filled in. But this is named after a priest in Pennsylvania, and his last name was Muhlenberg, and he was an amateur botanist, and he had this plant named after him. Of course, we don't call it Muhlenberg grass, we call it muhly grass just because it's easier to say that long name. There's also a white version of this, and I don't know if it's the cultivar or the pink one's the cultivar. Usually the white is in most plants, the white is the main color, and then any other color is a cultivar, but I think that is reversed in this case. But I have to tell you that it's not quite as showy as the pink. But Muhlenbergia capillaris, pink muhly grass. The final plant for this week is Monstera deliciosa. There are some common names, but I'll be honest, they don't make me happy. The Missouri Botanical Garden lists the common name as split-leaf philodendron. Well, I grew up with a totally different plant as split-leaf philodendron. It was actually Philodendron psalloum. So I'm morally opposed to calling this one a split-leaf philodendron. It is a gorgeous plant. It is a tropical, so it will not survive outdoors in Georgia during the winter. However, it loves the outdoors in Georgia, spring, summer, and fall. It's hardy to zone 10, which is, I believe, Central and South Florida. Probably South Florida, probably well south of Orlando, like Fort Lauderdale, Miami, Fort Myers-ish. It's a vine. It needs support to grow tall. Pretty easy to grow, though. Pretty tolerant of most houseplant type conditions. But like I said, it does need support, and the more it's supported and the taller and older it gets, the bigger it gets. I mean, and they can get monstrous, pardon the plant pun. And you can see from this picture with somebody's hand. That's not my hand. I know my hand is in a lot of them, but it's always my right hand, and my hand is not, well, my fingers are longer. Anyway, this gives you a pretty good idea of the scale of some of these leaves on a mature monstera. They are just humongous. The holes are called fenestrations, which is Latin for windows. Some people say it looks like Swiss cheese, and that's fine. The other part of the name, the specific name on Monstera deliciosa is, well, I gave it away. It's deliciosa, and that refers to these fruit. They don't look like much, but the the people that eat them claim that they taste like a combination of pineapple, bananas, and strawberries, all that rolled into one. However, the outer layer of plant tissue is bitter and toxic and will make you sick. Um, so, you know, go carefully if you ever find any fruit on these. And also, there's a few little variations, including this variegated one. The variegated ones are very, very popular, but um, they're not very, they aren't very many of them in the marketplace. So the ones that are out there are in very high demand. And I have seen plant auctions very recently for the variegated Monstera that are going for, you know, gosh, a couple of $100 for an unrooted cutting. Not exactly my cup of tea, but anyway, that's Monstera deliciosa, a tropical houseplant.